Here we go. Game number 65, the Toronto Maple Leafs regular season, breaking this one down as they lose to the Florida Panthers here 3-2. I'm Zack Phillips, and tonight I will be joined by Carter Hutton to help break all of this down. He'll be joining us here soon to help dissect everything that just went right, went wrong in this game against the Panthers. And as always, it is a presentation of Bet365. Bet365, proud partner of Leafs Nation pregame and the Leafs Nation after dark. But Huts will be jumping on with us to help figure out what happened here tonight. Let me just start by saying something that's probably going to be a little bit frustrating to people who are eternal optimists and feel as though, we can't be hard on this team and they still are a great group and, it was only a 1-goal loss here tonight. Yeah. This felt exactly like it does every season. I saw comments when I got here to the chat tonight to start the show, and it was like, can't wait for the Zack rant, can't wait for Zack to go off tonight. Maybe as this one builds up and we keep going and see where you guys are at in the chat, and when Huts joins us, see what he thought of this one. We'll see how this builds. But this was the most predictable outcome possible. There was two, right? There was two ways that this was going to go. One was that the Leafs were going to blow the doors off the Panthers. The big boys were going to have a night. Everybody was going to go nuts. We were going to talk about how amazing they were. This is playoff hockey. These guys are unbelievable. And the other was exactly what just happened. And I would have rather been fooled to think that they could have done it when it comes to the postseason. This game tonight was basically just everything that we've been worried about what happened in the playoffs and everything we've seen for the last 8 seasons happening once the regular season finishes, happening in this game against Florida tonight. No Tkachuk, no Ekblad on the other side. You get everybody back for Toronto. The guy that we've pretty much deemed your number one goaltender is ready to go. You get some excitement. You get fights. Max Domi beats the absolute wheels off Nate Schmidt. You open the scoring early. 3 unanswered from Florida. The building shuts down. Panthers take a lead, and they're just not giving it up. That's who they are. That's what they do. They're not going to let you back in this. And looking at the final score, it's like, okay, it's a 1-goal game. It's not that bad. And you're kind of right. It's not that bad. And it was nice to see them push back at the end. But I don't know, 18 games away from the playoffs, that's kind of almost not enough, because I watch a game against Florida that was for 4 points and you're pushing for first in the Atlantic. Nick was texting us saying, oh, who cares? It's a meaningless game. What does it matter? It's well, it's not. It is, but it's not. You could finish first in the Atlantic and get home ice, play a wild card team, or you could go through one of Tampa or Florida. You could potentially quickly accidentally slip down to third and be on the road in the first round. You'd much rather set yourself up with that first place spot, have the home ice, play the team that's maybe not as good as those other ones, and not have to go through such a grueling physical battle in the first round if that's going to be the case. This game, just as tight as it was, as it finishes 1 goal, and it feels like they pushed and they fought to the end, and it's nice to see JT and Nylander getting points, and it's nice to see depth contributions. At the same time there, it's it feels like that's just kind of what you see of these guys in playoff games, an important series. They're close. They're right there, but they just can't quite get it done. They just can't quite get over the finish line. To help us break all of this down here tonight, I'm glad someone else who has more experience and probably a more level head than I do is going to be joining us here. Welcome to the show, Carter Hutton. Huts, how's it going, buddy? Are you I don't know if you caught what I said to open the show here tonight. I'm not going to yell and scream about this game, but it kind of leaves me, at least from a fan perspective, like a little bit sad. I don't know if that's the right word. It's like, wow, that just felt like what I watch in the postseason every single year.
Well, I think you're in all right to feel that way, man. Like I do too. I guess maybe I had such high hopes for this game, and my perspective coming in was like such a big matchup. And like to think about who is not in the lineup right now, like Ekblad's out, Marchand is out, Tkachuk is out.
Too.
This is like make a statement game, right? Like where you're at in the standings right now. You're chasing them. You want to try to stay out of Florida in the first round. It looks like you're going to have to go to Tampa now. And I know like everyone always makes that point about like, you know, if you want to win it, you got to play tough teams, but like an easier series to start would be wonderful, right? Like you could draw the Sens instead of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think that's a better matchup. Yeah. Like there's so many things and it's just the demeanor of the game, right? I guess it just leaves me wanting more. Like it wasn't horrible in the sense of it was a tight game. You know, there wasn't a ton of chances on both sides, but like your big guns are just not your big guns again. Sam Bennett, 2 goals, a guy that just steps up in big games, gets it done. You know, at the end, they showed the stats of, you know, Matthews and Marner tonight, and they're on the ice for 2.5 minutes to end the game. They're absolutely juiced. Like we need to roll lines here too, right? I think at some point, the other one that pissed me off tonight was like Mitch Marner playing goalie when there's 11 seconds left. Like who cares, man? Like go, like why are you like pressure the puck, man? There's no time left. I just leaves me wanting more, right? I don't want to panic. I don't want to freak out, but I'm a little pissed. I feel like Jay should have been the guy on this show right now. He could have dropped a few more F-bombs, but like it was kind of just one of those games where it just leaves you wanting more. And again, like I think you set the table. I came on early. I heard you. Like Domi, right? Like what a huge hit, a huge fight. Like the building, like that's got to erupt in energy. And you're up 1-0 on a great like cross seam. Like what a shot from Tavares, what a feed from Nylander. And then you give up the next 3 goals, right? It's just like mind blowing to me.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing I tweeted it out after. I'm like, get on your feet, like get ready to go here, Toronto. Like you're up 1-0, you're up early, you looked ready to go. It's your top 6 who scores. And the one thing I always feel watching those fights happen, especially in a situation like that or against a team like that, is like you got to almost tiptoe around it. Because if you get your shit pumped, that could be the biggest backfire ever, right? Like it's a huge hit. It's great for momentum. Then you go fight. But if that thing goes sideways, like could be fans are out of it. Your team's sitting there going, oh shit, what just happened? Now Florida's got the momentum, especially in Scotiabank too, right? We know how easily that place can go quiet, and it doesn't. It's like they're ready to go. Domi beats the wheels off of him. I'm sitting on my couch ready to run through the TV. And then like after that, it just kind of it kind of went quiet. Like it wasn't that it was a bad game. It just felt like any attack that Toronto had tonight, it was nullified. I mean, they were talking about it late there, and they kind of made the joke, but it's something the Leafs need to adjust to, and it feels like in playoff series, it's something they don't, right? And they put the puck in the corner on the forecheck, and Florida finds a way to kind of slow you down without it being interference, cut off the forecheck. You know, pucks are even going down in there, and it's like Bob is just kind of quickly just being like, no, you're not getting in here and getting in on the forecheck and causing problems for us, because he's breaking it up before it gets a rung around. And like it was just they couldn't get on any type of roll here tonight. Florida wouldn't allow it.
Yeah, and a credit to Florida and the way that they defend that, right? I know Mike Johnson made a point of that, of talking about it on the telecast about how they get in the way, but everybody does that, right? It's playoff hockey, right? These are big games now. It's the second half of this. I always used to joke, like, if I could get to this point of the season where it's like after All-Star break and have good stats, it's like, you know, you're going to have good stats because the game tightens up so much. Like the goalies didn't have to do a ton. You're going to kind of carry those numbers. And it reminds me a little bit of like the Four Nations Cup with Team Canada, how well Bennington played the puck. And it's so simple. I had this conversation with Dave Alexander, who was the goalie coach in St. Louis and with Team Canada. It's not the first pass the goalie makes. They judge the handles by that second pass, right? So if you can get it to your D-man with time and they relieve a little bit of pressure, then you're out of the zone. And it just relieves the forecheck. It makes it so hard to play against. And it was almost like rinse and repeat tonight, right? It felt like they just could not generate zone offense. And then there's a few plays where They had one in the second period where they had a bunch of offense going, and Nylander just tries to make like a pass through the box that gets knocked down to Matthews because he's like trying to spoon feed him. And it's like at times it's like less is more, right? Like if you don't have something, make a simple play, keep it safe, right? And a term that I was stuck with me, it was like with players in the NHL, was the best players are the guys that know what to do with the puck when they have nothing, right? And I feel like at times it's like they try to do so much and they try to feed each other. And I feel like it just takes away from the game. And the other one for me tonight was obviously special teams, right? Like that's a killer. You need to kill penalties. The OEL penalty is a tough one for me. Like it's a retaliatory one where you punch him in the face for no reason. Yes, the scrum goes wait, the whistle should win, but that's like controllable, right? These are big game moments and it's like has impacts on the game. And then the other key one is the Lawton play. Like that puck has to get out of the zone. I know it's a great play by Seth Jones. Like you could sit here and view it glass half full, glass half empty, whatever side you're on. I guess if you're a Florida fan, you're like, oh, what a play by him. But it's a soft ass play by Lawton. Like you have to get that puck out. That's not acceptable hockey for a guy lying on his stomach with one hand on his stick, able to pull it back in the zone. And next thing you know, those pucks end up in the back of your net.
Yeah, 1-goal game against the Florida Panthers. You're trying to kill off a penalty. The puck's literally inches, like quite literally inches from being out of the zone. And you're making a one-hand poke at the play. I mean, we reserve judgment on Lawton there early because you fly overnight, you get to Colorado, play that game. You're on the road, and then you go into Utah, play on Monday night. I'm curious where you're at because 3 games in now, and still those 2 games that we saw at a lot are mixed into the sample and mixed into like the recency bias of how I'm judging him. But I'm pretty happy with Carlo. He doesn't jump off the page, but one thing I noticed about the guy too, and I mean, you probably would love it as a goalie as well, is like the guy's a fucking menace in front of the net in terms of boxing out. Like watch him put his ass on a guy's hip and just turn. The guy can't get around him, can't get inside, like can't make the goalie's life a nightmare there. But it's Scott Lawton to me that I'm wanting a whole lot more from. And on Friday, when we went through the trade deadline show, basically right away into the show, Nick's like, yeah, it's going to take like 2 games, or I think he might have said less than that, but for Scott Lawton to be on John Tavares' second line, like left wing. Well, lo and behold, here tonight against Florida, that's where he is. They're trying to find something, some way to get him going, some way to get offensive production. What do you make of Lawton here? Is there a way that they could do something to get more out of him? Like, what's going on? Was this a swing and a miss by Brad Treliving here right now?
No, I think it's too early to say it's a swing and a miss, but I also think there is like an adjustment period. There is like some time where you just need to be able to settle into your role and who you're playing with. And a penalty kill is like, you know, you need to be seamless with your partner, right? Like coming and going, timing, and just transition in the defensive zone is so important. So I think for Scott Lawton, it's going to take some time, especially with them not practicing, right? There hasn't been a lot of time for these guys to get used to each other, and there might not be headed home here. So again, I think it's something that they're going to have to work on through video. Scott Lawton isn't like a rookie, so he knows what he's doing. But in that same sense, I feel like you're under the microscope, right? You just want to set the tone, right? And I think getting off on the wrong foot like he has isn't great either. Just for the fact of the matter is you're in the fishbowl now, right? This isn't Philly, and Philly hasn't been good in a while. Right? I know he knows how to deal with pressure, but you're in Toronto now, and like you're going to be judged instantly the day you put that Leafs jersey on, and he's going to. And for Carlo, I like too. I think at times, you know, he's rangy, he eats up space, and he's just a big body where he can get a leg or a stick or something in the way. And I think that's so important nowadays in the NHL, because when we look back on all the teams that win the cup and that have good runs, it is about that, right? It is about being able to take up space, right? So I think they will settle in. I'm not like totally sold that like Lawton is a miss by any means. I think he's going to get better, but tonight was a great example of that puck has to get out. And then when the puck ends up in the back of the net, he's gassed standing in the slot as Sam Bennett shoots that puck in the net too, right? So that's another one where it's like, you didn't get that puck out. You got to find a way to dig deep and deal with it. And obviously it came back to bite them tonight.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, he's going to be posterized all over social media after that one by angry Leafs fans who are just going to be playing that one back all night. I mean, he gets it. It's tough for me. I feel like he's just kind of, I don't think he's been bad. He said it on the Saturday night against Colorado. It was not a good game from him, but I think on Monday against Utah, he was fine. He's just not noticeable. Here tonight, he's going to be noticeable for the wrong reason for that one goal. But I mean, it's just tough because I feel like Leafs fans right now are just expecting him to jump off the page. The one area that I want to go to with you is going to be a touchy subject for everybody involved. And people in the chat have already been saying this as we got in here. And when I brought up Lawton a second ago, people got on me for bringing up his name and not other people's. But you said it. Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares. Look, Nylander and Tavares connect on the first goal there. I mean, outside of that, it's pretty much crickets. I actually thought Nylander looked pretty decent tonight, just like compared to the other guys there maybe, which is probably a low bar in this game tonight. But there's just nothing generated. Matthews gets one chance in through the slot or through the neutral zone. He goes in on a partial breakaway and he fires the thing over the net. Marner gets one shot that hits off the crossbar and it was a floater from the point on the power play. These guys are just not difference makers right now. Like, they're not being difference makers in these types of games, these important games. Like, this is a game where you could get 4 points. You could try to kind of push Florida down below you. You could take a spot. You're try to fight up to the top of the Atlantic there. Like, these are important moments. And by the way, that's a playoff style of game. They snuff everything out. Their goaltending's really good. They're superstars. Let's put a asterisk on that. Sam Bennett scores 2 goals for them. Like, it's their big boys who step up. And you look across at our end, and those guys are nowhere to be found. Is this cause for concern getting to the postseason here now 17 games away at this point?
I think so. Honestly, I do. Especially when you think of the magnitude of this game, right? Playing Florida, and like, there's just the statement this game can make. And then you look across the ice, and yes, Sam Bennett, I wouldn't label as a superstar, but he is a playoff player. He is a guy that is meat and potatoes. He's going to grind it out, and he answered the bell again tonight. So for me, Marner was just non-existent, and Matthews has been worrisome for a while. Nylander's a guy you got to take and leave it, like, because again, when he is on, sometimes it's effortless, right? So it does kind of get, when it isn't going his way, you can get a little bit rattled because it seems like he's not putting in the effort, but I thought he was decent tonight. Matthews, like, something's wrong. I don't know what is going on. He's been off, and it's almost like he's just like a grinder now. And I know he's going to get tough matchups, but like, for a guy who's been like,
Vic called him Phil Deneau.
Right? Yeah, I know. I saw someone calling him Jordan Stahl today too. I was absolutely dying too. So I really enjoyed that he's turned into Jordan Stahl. But it's literally like, it's bad. It's tough to watch, right? And Mitch Marner, a perfect clip for me is Mitch. I wish I had the clip. I should have saved it. He's on the forecheck and he does like 3 jumps trying to get by a guy. Like, it was like the funniest thing I watched. Like, I know he's all about his edge work, and at times it's pretty, but these are the games you're going to play in, right? And I know we've seen it before, and there's reason to worry because it feels like it's like that girlfriend that you keep getting in trouble with. You keep saying you're going to change and you're going to change, you're going to do better, and it's like at what point do we just break up in this relationship? Because it is nuts, right? It's just the same thing over and over again. And for me, what I see from Mitch Marner is the fact he's just a perimeter guy at all costs, right? And then teams know that they're going to grind him out. And like, think about the interference we saw tonight, right? We talk about that. We talk about the grind of the game. That just gets heightened in the playoffs. It's almost like the refs put their whistle away more. And it's something that at times can be infuriating because it's like you have to play a certain way during the regular season to get into the playoffs. And then all of a sudden you have to play a different brand of hockey. But we know that that's established. This is what people want. That's playoff hockey. And that tonight was not playoff hockey from the superstars. Yes, it was a playoff-like game. But again, your big boys aren't there.
Yeah, and to that point, like, even just taking that one example of them trying to get in and get pucks in the corners when things get dumped in and how hard it is for them to fight through. I mean, there's going to be people who are pushing back being like, well, what do you want them to do? Well, watch when, and the Leafs are lucky enough now because I remember playoff series in the years past where it was like they did not have defensemen who were good at puck retrieval. Like, the puck would go back there and those guys would get eaten alive in the playoffs. You now at least have, McCabe and Tanev, and I think Carlo's like decent at it. OEL is pretty decent at going back there and getting the puck. Even at times, Simone Benwell looks like all of a sudden he's like got a new gear. But those guys are fighting for their lives. And like, they're coming away with pucks and not throwing pizzas around, but like, their life is miserable from these teams. Desperate hockey teams that are like, fighting for every inch to get the puck back, to get points in the standings, to get themselves ready for the playoffs. And it's like our defensemen are just under the gun back there, and then you watch the guys on the other end. It's like pucks in the corner, get a little break, and back up the other way. And like, that's where it's infuriating, is watching going, why can't we make their life as difficult as they make ours? And I couldn't imagine the Leafs defenseman watching the forechecks going on and being like, seriously, guys, are you not seeing what's happening back here? What we're having to do to get the pucks back to you right now?
And think that's in like a 1-game showdown, right?
Yeah.
That was just tonight. So like we'd always have that point when we would play in a playoff series, right? You would talk about D-man, we'd go through it. And it was almost like a classroom session, because what happens in the NHL in the regular season is games come at you quick and hard, right? So it's like you do a little bit of video of, penalty kill, power play, whatever. You go through a team dynamic, you kind of get used to it. But it's more about the way you play. But then you get to a playoff series and it becomes like a classroom session. Like you have a binder and it's like filled with notes and everybody knows what's going on. Each player's magnified. There's clips of guys, where to get them. And one of the main priorities in a playoff series is wearing guys down, is getting pucks in and grinding them. It might not be the first hit. It might not be the 15th hit. It might not be whenever, but it might be a certain play where, because that guy's been getting run through the boards every single shift of every single game, in game 6 or game 7, he turns a puck over because he's tired or because what's been going at him every single game, where I just don't feel that from this team, right? I don't feel like they're a team that can get down in the mud and grind you out and just eliminate you, right? So I think that is worrisome when we start to look at the East, right? We start to look at some of the teams that they're going to run into and what they're going to see. And then again, it always comes down to where like, the superstars cancel out the superstars, right? That's how playoffs work. It's like, if you got your big dogs, I got my big dogs, they're going to play to even keel. And then from there, it's like, we talk about the third and fourth line grinders, right? That are going to be the difference in the playoff. I had a chance to interview Kevin Cheveldayoff the other day from Winnipeg, and he talked about that a lot. He talked about like how he wanted to touch up guys around the outside in Winnipeg, because he thinks that bringing in Luke Schenn and Tanev, because he thinks that that's where the playoffs are going to be won. Yes, they already have an all-star goalie. They have their stamp. But, like, when you look at them, they don't really wow you by any means, right? You look at some of these teams, Washington doesn't really wow you. It's the fact of the matter is there's depth down the lineup that, like, can grind you out and grind away a series. And I really worry about this team because of the superstars and the lack of grind they have in the lineup.
Well, it feels like I've heard that 9 years in a row, Huts. It seems like that's been the same conversation. I want to ask you 2 questions here before you leave. So you brought up the special teams yourself as you got on here. I'm not going to ask you what's wrong with these guys. I'm not going to ask you how do you fix that. We are 65 games in. We haven't figured it out. They haven't figured it out. They make a whole lot more money than you and I do. I don't want to be sitting here on the show trying to figure it out for them. What I am going to ask you is, the playoffs every single year, I mean, let's at least just narrow it down to probably like the last 4 seasons. Their power play has been dreadful. It's been completely out to lunch. It has cost them games. It's cost them opportunities. It's cost them series here. You could possibly look at it. Like looking at Boston last year, I think they were 4% on the power play last year. That's unacceptable, especially considering the personnel that you're putting out there. I've watched this power play for an entire season here now, and there have been spurts. And that's when I say spurts, I mean, it's like one power play out of like 20 all of a sudden looks good, and then it's like whoop, back to being non-existent here again. Are you just waving the white flag on this? You go 0 for 3 here tonight against the Panthers. You go 1 for 3 on the penalty kill. I don't want to jump too hard on the penalty kill because I think the body of work they put together this year, for the most part, has been pretty good. There's blips on the radar. We all know that. But this has been 65 games of a bad power play. I don't know how you change this over the next 17 going into the playoffs, especially considering it's not something they've ever done when the postseason's gotten here before.
Yeah, I don't know what you do at this point. I don't know if it's just throwing it in the blender and creating just 2 equal power plays and going with what's going, simplicity. Like, and
Could
again,
you imagine that? By the way,
I know, but like,
no,
that's
like
okay.
17 games away, and they're just like,
yeah, but why? But like,
it.
what is like the difference in that than what we're doing, right? So that is the infuriating part to me. And Zach, so the problem, I guess maybe I'm not the best because I was just defending power plays. I wasn't the one creating, and I know there's a lot of creativity involved and movement, but like from my perspective against a good power play was like sometimes the simplistic one was always the toughest one to deal with. Like when I knew that there was going to be traffic and I knew there was going to be shots, it was like you just had to compete to find pucks, and it made it really, really hard. You know, outside of the ones where you're really wowed by like the McDavid or the Draisaitl player like Ovi, in my career, like I always found the power plays that had like maybe a good puck mover up top that could bump it, and then guys come down and get pucks to the net, and then traffic, right? Create. And I feel like they just don't do that. It's like shot to the net, retrieval, back at it, create chaos, break the box. And I feel like it's always like trying to be cute. And I feel like even tonight, like Nylander makes that play on 5-on-5 play, but as a goalie, like I'm watching Bob, like he gives up that goal. Other than that, like he wasn't really challenged. Like what was he really challenged on? There was nothing, even on the power play. There was just no real like scoring chances, like grade A chances. Like Domi's goal is a sneaky release, right? Like it looks like his blade's going to go high and it comes off low glove and it kind of fools Bob. But other than that, like what did he have to do? I'm looking at those power plays and there's just not a lot. It's all perimeter stuff. They get the puck out, then they reset and they chip it in, and then it's like chips and retrievals, and they're trying to like be all cute. It's I guess it's frustrating where like maybe if you split the crew up and you just started having guys bomb it a little more and trying to create and get some net front presence and go from there. I'm sure they've tried this all. And again, this isn't our job to figure out, but as a goalie that played in the league for a long time, it's like infuriating to see them at least not making it hard on them, like not making it tricky, where tonight I thought was way too easy for a game that was supposed to be so important.
Yeah, it just felt like a playoff game again, Huts. It just did. I mean, and you look at the storylines of it after, it's like you're right back in there. Oh, it was hard to score. You had 3 power plays. You didn't score on any of them. Your penalty kill gave up a couple. It's like, man, I can't believe we're doing this over and over and over again. But at the same time, it's a Maple Leafs, and maybe they should be able to believe. The last thing, and you gave me a lot of your time here tonight. I appreciate that. But we haven't talked with you about it, and I would be a fool if I didn't ask you. The last little while has not been sunshine and rainbows for Stolarz and Wall. We're getting ready to go to the playoffs here now. There's the great debate, who starts, who's number one. I just want to ask you if there's any concern at all about the way these guys are playing. Like, you can break it down from a more technical perspective. Has things changed? Is it just getting unlucky? Like, are you worried about Stolarz and Wall here right now? You think things will get back on track? Because there's people in the chat who are just airing these guys out after every single game here at this point.
No, I'm not too worried about either of them. I think this is still a pretty good like 1-2 punch right now. I think Stolarz is your guy right now. I think he's earned it. I think the way he plays, he's simplistic. He doesn't really beat himself, which I think is a strong trait when you talk about the playoffs and the grind increasing. But I also think it's like a short leash, because I think Joseph Wall has that capability and the mental capacity to own the moment, right? We look at his playoff success. He's been good in the playoffs, right? And that's something that's important. It's more his worry's been like health and durability, where I think that goes out the window because we have 2 guys where, like, when I look back on the playoffs and like Samsonov, we were always worried about that bad goal going in. And the one for me was like the Frederick one down the wall, like low blocker from the perimeter. Like, but that's like what you're scarred with like Stolarz. I don't really feel that way. I feel like he competes and he keeps things in front of him. And again, I think what he's going to see is a lot different than what we've seen in the past too, because I do believe that they're going to defend harder and defend better. And they have been doing that. So I don't think this is the end all be all. Like, there's so many ebbs and flows of a season up and down as a goalie. I'm not totally stressed by any means. I think having 2 guys that can go is probably the most important factor right now for this Maple Leafs down this home stretch.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's kind of where I've been at. And the other thing is, like, the team's been porous defensively over the last while. Like,
yeah,
they've held up their end of the bargain for 60 games, or maybe just shy if you want to go back to like just right when they came back from 4 Nations, and the team basically was like, "Hey, thanks for all that hard work. Here's how we're gonna reward you. Keep figuring it out until we get to the playoffs." Like, what the fuck is going on? These guys are facing shots down Broadway every night. But I'm not worried about it with these guys here right now. I just kind of want to get your perspective. It's unfortunate that this is happening right before the playoffs, because it's going to send this city, as always, into just pure chaos. But at least we get somebody who's a lot smarter than us and a lot calmer than us to at least explain that. So, Huts, I appreciate that. I appreciate you jumping on with us here tonight. the next, well, I don't know if you're on morning take at all over the next little while, but the next I will see you would be next weekend, not this weekend, next weekend down in Nashville.
Yeah, next weekend in Nashville. I'm on morning take this week, I believe. A little send off here before we go. But yeah, looking forward to Nashville, buddy. We're gonna have a lot of fun. We'll have to make sure we have a good time. That's for sure. Hopefully, talk a little bit of hockey while we still can before we get too deep into it on Broadway.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Huts. I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you on morning take. Then appreciate you stopping by here. As always, enjoy the rest of your night.
No problem, guys.
All right, there you go. Carter Hutton hopping by to help us break this one down. I think that helps keep things a little bit level-headed here in the chat, especially with those of you guys who are trying to or often absolutely lose your minds, and I'm right there with you guys in a lot of that. The goaltending is a good little piece from Huts as well, especially because I think that a lot of times I could speak to things from a generic perspective, and us in the chat, we can go in on things like way too hard because you're just watching goals or save percentage. Huts can at least tell you what he's seeing for how these guys are playing, reacting, etc., etc., etc. And I think that provides a much needed perspective on everything. So, again, appreciate Huts as always. One of the best, one of my favorite people hopping by here on the post game show. Yeah, I know people wanted the Rosie rant here. I don't know if he's on morning take tomorrow. If he is, well, I will not be missing that. I'll tell you that for free. Look, I'm not going to yell and scream about the game tonight. This is it's a frustrating one to walk away from, and a frustrating one to kind of compartmentalize, because that game tonight was just exactly what we see every year in the playoffs. I've said it over and over again here tonight, but it was. You lost your special teams battle. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Houdini act out of the two of them. Just some depth contributions. I thought the bottom looked decent, but you can't get anything going offensively. You have no time and space. You can't score. Stolarz finishes with an 880. I don't think this is his fault tonight at all. But you look at this group, I just have no faith. I mean, I'll be real honest with you, and Nick is going to come on tomorrow on Leafs Morning Take and tell you it's not that big of a deal. It's just one game. I feel like every time they show us these games like this, it's just them showing us their true colors. Like, we get duped so often that they're a team with balls and a team that competes and a team that can play in these tough battles against good teams and get physical and win gritty battles. Like, they can't. They can't. This team is just not capable of it. And the most frustrating part is it's not, as much as we want to, and we want to say it's not the big boys, and it's Max Domi, it's Pontus Holmberg and Steven Lorentz and David Kampf. It's not. It's not. Matthews, Marner, they completely disappeared. I mean, Marner was, again, out to lunch. Soft plays, perimeter, won't go to the middle, won't take a hit, won't hit anybody. Just completely ineffective. Anytime he's driving and it looks like someone's coming near him, it's the stop up. Just no desire to go anywhere near anything that could be physical, tough, or that could just finish a check on him. Zero interest. At least when you look at like a Max Domi, he's getting in there, throwing hits, he's fighting. Pontus Holmberg is engaged in physical battles after whistles. Like, he's getting in there and defending guys, defending the goaltender. He's involved. Steven Lorentz, I thought, had his legs moving tonight. Do these guys play the best? No. They don't. But it's up to the big boys. Sam Bennett on the other side scores 2 goals against the Leafs tonight. He's got his fingerprints all over this game. Every time he was on the ice, I noticed him. You might as well have put Marner and Matthews on fucking milk cartons out there because those guys were just invisible. You had to have a search party for the two of them. And the scariest part about it is I'm not going to chalk this up as just another regular season game. I can't. You're 17 games away from the playoffs. You're playing against the Florida Panthers. These are 4-point games in a battle for first in the Atlantic Division. And your most important players, while the other side is missing Matthew Tkachuk, Brad Marchand, and Aaron Ekblad, your most important players, your highest paid players, the guys who are supposed to be superstars on this team, they say, fuck you, we're not showing up. They just have zero impact on the game. And this is not a one-off. This is not a one-time thing that we can go, ooh, don't worry, it only happened here tonight. They can figure it out in the next one. This is who they've been for 8 years. This is the same act into year 9 of 34-16. Nylander at least shows some engagement. Yeah, okay, let's get on him for fucking off every now and then. That's fine. I'm not going to give him a pass, but like relative to where the other guys are, he at least makes the most impact of them. Yeah, he floats around and he can kind of disappear in and out of games at times, but more impactful and more dangerous when he gets out on the ice than the other two are when games get like this. If this team loses, when this team loses in the playoffs this year, the only people that you're going to have to blame is 34, 16, 88, 44, and 91. I don't want to hear a single fucking word about Lawton, about Holmberg, McMahon, Domi. I do not care. I don't care if those guys finish with 0 points and are minus 25s at the end of playoffs. If we look at those top guys and we look at the way that they've played when the season or when the postseason comes to an end, if they are not the best players on the ice, this team is utterly fucked. And to be quite honest with you, they've done absolutely nothing to indicate that it would be any difference when you get to the playoffs this year. I have zero faith in Matthews or Marner showing up and being the best players on the ice, taking over games, taking over series. Look at that game against the Boston Bruins last year when you lost. Game 7, 1-goal game. It's William Nylander who scores the goal for the Leafs. And it's David Pastrnak who scores the OT winner for the Boston Bruins. It's the big boys. Josh DiSavino, Zack, what is the definition of insanity? Well, as I've been told, apparently it's not actually this, but, you know, it's doing the same thing and over again and expecting a different result. Run it back. Run it back. Run it back. And there are people in this city and in this market who still want to re-sign Mitch Marner no matter what happens when the playoffs come this year. I'll tell you what, if they re-sign him with a first round or a second round exit, and there are no other changes made amongst the big boys on this team, that is MLSE and the Toronto Maple Leafs waving the white flag and telling everyone in this city they don't give a fuck about anything but money. Winning, who cares? Do we compete in the regular season and have guys set team records? Do we make the playoffs? That's all. Thanks for coming. Sign your contracts. Here's all your money. Let's get the ticket sales. Let's get the jerseys at the door. We'll call it a day. This group does not have the mental or physical makeup of a team that can compete in the playoffs. I know Nick is going to talk about it tomorrow. Oh, it's just one game. It's just a regular season game. It's not, though. This is who they are. This is who they are. They're going to compete. They'll make it 7 games. They'll lose by 1 goal. And they'll be done at the end. First round, see you later. Potentially second round, that's the cap. I can't see this team doing anything meaningful, especially when you look at this path of Florida, Tampa, Washington, Carolina. 7 games against those teams. Not happening. I just can't see it. Unless they show something different than they've shown for 8 fucking years, then why would we believe anyways? Why would we believe that this is a group that's going to change who they are overnight when the playoffs start? Because we've also just, like, look at how Florida's playing right now without those guys. Look at how Colorado and Dallas are gearing up and Vegas is gearing up. Look at the way that they're playing, the process that's going in, the mentality that's going in every single game as they get closer and closer to the playoffs. They're just getting more and more ready, playoff ready, playing the playoff style of hockey because they're just getting more and more fine-tuned as it goes along. This group has expected every single year for the last 8 seasons to finish the regular season, close their eyes, wake up on the morning of playoffs and be like, ooh, we're ready to play playoff hockey. That's not how it works. That's not how it's ever worked. And that's not how it works for these teams that go on to have success. This group does not have the makings of it. They don't have the mindset. They have unbelievable players with incredible talent, but they don't have the balls. When it matters most, this group just completely fucks off. They don't have what it takes. They've shown us all season long this is who they are. A 4-point game against the Florida Panthers here tonight. An opportunity to start to swing things. Make a statement on home ice. Didn't matter. You go up 1-2 minutes in. Domi lays a massive hit. Domi beats the absolute wheels off of Schmidt. 3 straight from the Panthers. Game over. You just don't have it. And I think that other teams look around as well and look at these guys and look at the makeup and the group that they have, and they just know. They don't have it there. I don't think they have it within them to dig deep when it matters the most. Mitch skates across the red line, sees a guy coming, and he put the puck in the corner. Pull back, won't do it, can't do it. Hut's brought it up, jumping over hits. Take a hit to make a play. These guys are skating in, getting pinched off. Rather than getting pinched off, you got to get away from everybody. Turn the puck over. This is a pathetic showing from the big boys here in a game that is important and is very much like a playoff game. You couldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. I just don't I just don't understand how other teams look at them and think they're like a legitimate threat come playoff time. I don't know how they could do that. We got some super chats that I haven't answered, so I want to make sure to get to these. I want to answer these, especially considering they go to a good cause here. We've got a ton of viewers here on the show tonight. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe here to the channel. I want to see I want to see all you guys hitting that like button, that subscribe button. You know, whether it's Leafs Morning Take, Monday through Friday, breaking everything down, reacting to the games the night before, having unbelievable guests on, or if it is right here on the Leafs Nation After Dark show, reacting to games in real time. Amazing guests stopping by. You guys saw Carter Hutton, who just joined us off the top of the show for about 25 minutes there. If it's Nick Alberga, if it's Jay Rosehill hopping through here, try to have some more amazing guests coming by on the program here as well as we get ourselves closer and closer to the playoffs, and then in the playoffs there as well. But we do have a couple of super chats, so I do want to answer those. And before we do, if you guys are new to the show, well, we have a super chat charity partner on the show this season, and that would be Sick Kids Charity. It goes to an amazing cause. You guys send these in these Sick Kids. Proceeds from our super chats go to Sick Kids Charity. So you guys want your question or your comment read on the show. You want to be part of the show there that way, or have your thoughts out, or have me answer whatever it may be. You send those in. I will answer your questions. I will get to the super chats. So let's start with what we've got here in the chat for the first one coming in from Jeff McKay. All right, Jeff McKay here. Florida just plays hard on the boards. Easy to beat a team that can play the board, yet they keep trying to, no matter how many times it fails. I mean, that's another thing too. And David's kind of Jeff, is kind of like digging into a little bit more specific of what we're talking about in these things, and why you can't find ways to beat teams. But I feel like one of the mistakes this Leafs team makes so often is trying to play the style of hockey that the other team plays and go toe-to-toe with them. I think the one reason that it worked against Tampa that year is because they probably played the closest style to you. They just have like horses with heart and balls over there who are like, their give a shit meter is significantly higher than yours. So, you know, it finds a way to out hustle, whatever. And that's why they got to the Cup finals. That's why they won Stanley Cups. Now, you play against Boston, you play against Florida, you get suckered into these types of games where it's just grinded out, board battles, forechecking, pucks in deep and retrieve the puck. I don't know that this team can go toe-to-toe with those. And they attempted it here against Florida. And I mean, a part of it is because it was so hard for them to maintain possession entering the zone. Florida does such a good job of suffocating you, taking away time and space. You basically have to go and try to retrieve it. But it's like the same problems that you see year after year after year with this group. And yet again here tonight in this game against Florida, it's like you get suckered into playing Florida style. You just can't quite match them. You make some stupid mistakes. They end up in the back of your net, and it's game over. Power play, special teams can't get it done. Big boys don't show up. You're not going to win. It's not a recipe for success. There you go. There is the first super chat. So let's get to our next one. Unknown says, we all know Zack for sure. We need many prayers, bud. Well, praying, I mean, is only going to get us so far, unfortunately, I think. Unknown. At this point, having not won a Stanley Cup since 1967, I imagine there's a lot of people who have prayed, and it just has not quite come through. Next super chat. I can't believe we're doing this again 17 games away from the playoffs. Like, I can, but I can't. Nate92. Leafs' biggest problem has been and will continue to be that Matthews is a generational loser that can't score a single goal in winner-take-all game. Yeah, I mean, Nate92, Matthews, Marner. I mean, I look at both of them, and the other thing is those guys are paired up. I looked out there tonight, and it's like, what have those guys done? Through 40 minutes, they were effectively unnoticeable. The one chance that they had was Matthews getting in alone, breaking him through the D, and he kind of flips that thing up and over the net and completely misses. And that's it. Like, Marner, afraid to go to the front of the net. Matthews, something's bothering the guy. Something's off. Nylander at least gets on the board. He has a couple of chances, has a couple of shots on goal, walks away from this one with 6 shots on goal, which leads all Leafs. Austin Matthews, 3 shots on goal. Mitch Marner, 1 shot on goal. Mitch is 0 goals, 0 assists, 0 plus minus. They just have no way of imposing their will on a game. Nylander can show up and make something happen. He'll disappear for a bit. But, I mean, they won't take over. They won't do it. This is a game tonight. And you want to talk about meaningless game. You are now 4 points back of Florida. If you won this game, you would have both had 83 points. You would have both had 40 wins. You are now 4 points back. You have 2 less wins than they do. And you're going to play them a couple more times before you get to the playoffs. This team owns you. Your big boys are scared to show up. Your power play fucking sucks. Your penalty kill is leaky. Just feels like it's another early disappointing exit coming. Before I get to the next super chat, we've got 50 likes here on the stream. Thank you guys for liking, subscribing. If you haven't already, make sure to keep hitting that like button. Keep subscribing here to the channel. Turn on notifications as well. That way you get notified every time that we go live. I think if we schedule streams, when videos, interviews, clips, it all comes out, you get notified right away, which is something you don't want to miss, especially when the morning show goes live. Every day, 11, people might get into this like, oh, I'm in the work day. Maybe I forgot. Maybe I'm taking kids to school. I'm making lunch. I'm eating lunch. I don't know what it is, but you forgot that the show is starting. Bang, you get a notification, show's starting. You don't want to miss that. Mine is at least a little bit easier, but still, if you turn on notifications, you probably won't miss that either. So thank you guys for liking. Here's a smelling salts. So do that every 50 likes. If we get to 100, I'll do them again, but thanks for liking. Here you go. There you go. Oh, that's tough. All right, let's get to the next super chat. Okay, next super chat here comes in from Maxentius Decimus. Maxentius, and just look at the Scotiabank ticket prices. I think that was from earlier when I was going on the rant about how it feels like this. There's some complacency amongst the MLSE group, and if they lose again, you just go and sign 16 again. It really doesn't send any type of message other than we're happy with the money and we'll call it a day. Yeah. I'm on your page, Max. We got another super chat here. Let's get to this. Super chat from Michael. Instead of the Leafs fighting for top seat, which definitely will not happen, should be teams fighting to play the Leafs in the playoffs. Michael, I don't disagree. Like, you know what's kind of funny too? We're talking about, how about this? Think about this in the reverse side. We are talking about Florida and Tampa and how tough that matchup would be. We're talking about how those two teams would beat the hell out of each other for 7 games and then come out bruised and battered out the other end. And if you're the Leafs, you want to avoid the 2nd spot or the 3rd spot, because you're probably going to have to play with this cloud above you that you're going to get the hell beaten out of you for that round against Florida or Tampa. And if you make it out of there, you're probably going to end up having to play Florida in the next round or Tampa in the next round, depending on how this all shakes out 1 through 3. And we are sitting here as Leafs fans being like, wow, let's avoid that at all costs because we really don't want to get the crap kicked out of us against those two teams. And then I think about Washington, and it's like, that's a heavy team who's going to beat down on you. And then I think about Ottawa, and it's like, well, that's a heavy team that's going to come out crazy and go guns a-blazing and be physical and try to run you through the walls and beat down on you. I can honestly not imagine a single scenario where Ottawa, Florida, Tampa, Washington, Columbus, Detroit, they look at the Leafs and they go, oh no, you don't want to play them because you'll come away bruised and battered. Like, these teams are like, oh, we'll just go into that series, probably could beat them. They're a good team, but we'll figure it out. This is a soft group. Like, if you went out and played against them, you could just beat the hell out of them physically and chirp away at them for 60 minutes and just mentally abuse them because you know they couldn't handle it. I don't think there's a single team going into the playoffs that looks at the Leafs and is scared. Yeah, Chris Tanev, he's going to be tough to get by because he's really good defensively. He's a tough guy, but he doesn't, like, beat the hell out of guys. Brandon Carlo, good defensively. Tough defenseman to play against. Yeah, they're going to make your life tough in front of the net, but like Morgan Rielly, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, do those guys scare you at all? Because they don't scare me. I'm not looking over my shoulder if I'm going in the corner with them, and I can't imagine a single guy in the NHL out there is looking out there at them being like, oh no, I don't want to face them. I don't want to have that guy in on the forecheck on me. Like, the scariest guys that you're looking at right now is Steven Lorentz, Bobby McMahon, Scott Laughton if he can get it together here, Max Domi just because he's a pest, and that's it. And unfortunately for the Leafs, those guys are in your bottom six and don't play nearly enough of minutes to be like terrifying players. I mean, I guess I should throw Nyes and say, like, yeah, that guy's a little bit physically scary. But Mike Batson, are you kidding, Zack? No one wants to play Toronto or Florida in the East. Dude, I wouldn't want to play Tampa or Florida. Toronto is not the team that's being thrown out there as this physical team that's going to beat down on you. Just not going to happen. Let's get to a couple of things here, and we'll start to wrap up the show here tonight. I mean, I don't have like too much more that I can even think about even going into. I think we've said a lot of what needs to be said. I'm glad that Hutz came on here and gave his perspective on all of this as well. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe here to the channel, but we've got a few things to get to. I'm shaking things up on the show, how we want to do some stuff. So I realized that I was doing one of the dumbest things possible with how I was balancing out segments. Let's start with this one. Let's just go right away to our play of the game. Play of the game. Play of the game is the entire sequence of Domi, the hit on Verhaeghe, and then the fight of Nate Schmidt. Massive open ice hit against one of Florida's top offensive players or one of their better players that they've got in their lineup. Just absolutely levels the guy. Not afraid of anyone. Does not matter. Size. Does not matter who the opponent is. He's ready to go. Smokes Carter Verhaeghe. Immediately after, it's Nate Schmidt who goes down and pretty quickly probably realized, actually, I don't want this thing to escalate further than just a pushing match. I just kind of wanted to tell you not to do that. And then all of a sudden, he's getting his shit kicked by Max Domi. Domi's a beast, man. I think that people are going to kind of have to walk back some takes and probably apologize a little bit to Max Domi for like who he is and how hard people were on him this season. And I get it. He wasn't producing. The points weren't there. It just looked like he was snake bitten and he wasn't really able to be Max Domi. But I feel like when the playoffs come, Max Domi is going to come to play. He's going to be a guy who steps up. I mean, obviously he's not as impactful as like Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares should be, but kudos to him, man. Not afraid of anybody, ready to step up, ready to answer the bell. That was an awesome hit. Got some life in the building there early on, especially after that goal. So that's going to be the play of the game for me. He also scores the goal there as well. So maybe this is the game that he needed to be like, let's go. We're ready to go. Get on my back. Like, I'm ready to go into the fight. Let's have at it. But the problem that the Leafs have is that it's not Max Domi that you need to be doing that. It's Mitch Marner and it's Austin Matthews and Nylander and Tavares. And those guys have to drag you in the fight. And I don't think they have the stones to do it. Once you get to the playoffs, look around. Okay. I mean, you could probably very quickly tell here that Nylander is going to step up and be ready. So I kind of don't want to jump on him way too much there. But, yeah, I mean, this is a massive game, and those guys disappeared. Just quickly, seeing comments in the chat here tonight, I think it's only one guy, but talking about how bad Nylander and Matthews were and just praising Marner here tonight. Was I watching a different game than what we're seeing? I don't think that Marner was good at all. Actually, I thought he was pretty bad. I don't know. Maybe I am watching something different. All right, let's get to our best bet segment. Our best bet presented by Bet365. Breaking news coming in from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner. Every face-off, hat trick, power play, shot on goal, penalty shot, and every suspenseful minute in between is amazing. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365 and an official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app and use the code NATION, NATION. That's code NATION, all caps, NATION, to get in on the game. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Unfortunately, here tonight, it is a loss for us, but, I mean, that was expected. If you watched the pregame show, if you heard us break everything down, we were taking a swing. It was Steven Lorentz, anytime goal, plus 1,400. We bet $20 on that one, a fifth of a unit. That was to win or to profit. That is $280. Unfortunately, just doesn't go our way on that one. We don't win, but you know what? The bottom six actually kind of looked like they had legs going. I thought Steven Lorentz, there was times where I thought he had some jump. I thought he was involved. I don't think it was a terrible bet. It was the best price in the market when you look out there tonight and you look around at different sports books and you try to figure out, like, okay, where is the market heading? What does everyone have this at? What is the price that we're kind of looking at in this one? But ultimately, it ends up that, like, he doesn't score, so we lose the bet. Bottom six I thought looked decent. I'm not mad about the bet. I mean, I wish we won that one. We're now currently sitting at 5.23 units of profit. That's $523 up on the season. We lose 0.2 units here tonight. We went from 5.43 to 5.23. But, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. And we got 17 games left to go down the stretch. Time to dial things in myself, because you know what, we can sit here and get mad at the guys on the ice as much as we want, but I got to show up too. I have to show up as well. Mitch Marner's uncle in the chat looking for a shout out. I don't know if it's his uncle or just dad, or I don't know, maybe like security teams or something running amok on the internet right now here in the chat, but they're looking for a shout out in the chat right now. Producer Vic, Zach, did you notice OEL on the ice to close it out instead of 44? Oh, Vic, I did. 44 has been struggling. He needs to be a lot better. I had a 44 rant on Saturday. I had a 44 rant on Monday. Yeah, it's going to continue, and if things don't change in the playoffs, it's going to just continue to amp up, Vic. But, I mean, you can't rely on the guy, right? You just can't. I don't think he looked as bad tonight. I mean, a part of it is I'm looking at Carlo so much and trying to figure out what he's doing, how he's impacting Riley, if he's kind of making improvements on his game, if they're learning to play together. I think that you started to see Brandon Carlo really settle in here. He looks like he's doing positive things in his minutes. I think that Riley actually started to settle in a little bit alongside of him, but the guy can't put up points offensively. He just can't produce. And if you're looking for a goal late, he's not going to be the guy who's going to be out there for me. He's susceptible to give up one. He can't produce anything. It's going to be OEL that's going to go out there because he's a guy who can find some offense in his game. He's a guy who at times did get thrown out on the first unit. Morgan Riley's got to figure this out here, and he's got to figure it out quick. Marner's uncle is suggesting Matthews is DeRozan. Well, I mean, only one of Marner or Matthews is a free agent at the end of the summer, and only one of the two of them wears a C, so we'll see how that one ends up going. Let's get to our final segment of the game to wrap this thing up here tonight. Let's get now to our grades of the game, and this is where we finally made some intelligent switch here on the show. The grade of the game is presented by Greta Bar YYZ as we get into our grade of the game. Greta Bar is a great spot before, during, and after the game. I mean, we went there on Saturday night to watch the Colorado Leafs game. Check out the great street food menu. I mean, I got the bao sandwich. They were unbelievable. The food that they have there is awesome. The service, the staff, everything. It's just a great time every time I go. Games in the arcade, Vic can attest to it. I mean, I kick his ass at air hockey every time. He doesn't want to admit it, but I do. Connect Four basketball, a lot of fun games that they've got there in Greta. Games that I mean, I showed at one time. I had a stack like this big of the cards. I finally took it back in and took all of the cards that I had and put them onto one. So thank God we finally consolidated that. Weekly drink specials there. Greta Bar is the place to be. 590 King Street West, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. Let's get to our play of the game, or our grade of the game here tonight. Excuse me. There you go. Marner's uncle. Marner gets an A. All right. A for Mitchie tonight. If he gets an A, the bottom six here tonight, the grade they get is astronomical. The grade Sam Bennett gets tonight is astronomical. I see a lot of people all over the place here in the chat, though. B minuses, C minus, D, B plus, B minus, B minus, F, B, C plus, F minus, C plus, F, C, C plus. I'm going to go harsh on this one. I'm going to be straightforward. I'm going with an F. It's overall context of this one that gives me the F grade on the game tonight. I mean, .880 save percentage. This is not Stolarz' fault. I want to be very clear about that as I say that as well. It's not Stolarz' fault, but it's still an 880 save percentage. Oh for 3 on the power play. 1 for 3 on the penalty kill. Special teams kills you. Your big boys are non-existent. It's all relying on the bottom 6. And I think most importantly here as well, it's you just showed us that this is the same team as always. And the facade that was put on, as KPG there says, dude, F for Fugazi. The Fugazi play through the entire season to like lead up to this moment against the Panthers and have that happen. It was like they revealed the mask at the end of the movie and you went, oh, what the fuck? I don't know how you could be optimistic about this group right now. I don't know how you could be. It's depressing in a way to see this and get this far into the season and then go, fuck. They are who we thought they were. That's the end of it. I'm going with an F. This is a massive game. Chance for you to show that you were a little bit different. Florida's in playoff mode, as KPG says. The other thing, the Leafs are in playoff mode. That was a Leafs playoff game tonight. You just showed what you do in April every year. You get your shit kicked on special teams. Your goaltending is average. Probably not the problem or the reason that you lose. But I don't know that they put on a stellar performance. You get stuck to the perimeter. Matthews, Marner. No interest in getting themselves to the middle. No interest in the physical game. Just stay on the outside. Stay away from hits. Stay away from traffic. Anything that could get you hit or hurt, not interested. That's who this group is. We were hoodwinked, bamboozled for 64 games. I think that group just showed their true colors here tonight, and it's scary. It's scary to think that that's what you're going to walk into the playoffs with. That'll do it for me here on the show tonight. I appreciate everyone who tuned in. This is an F grade. It's a big show. We're getting ready for the playoffs here. We're getting ready for 7 shows and saying goodbye, and we'll see you in the summer, I guess. Thank you to producer Vic for popping in the chat there as always. Thank you to Carter Hutton who jumped on and joined in the show here tonight. Thank you to Marner's uncle for participating in the chat. We appreciate you and continuing to tire pump 16 in a contract year. That's always nice to see. Thanks as always for watching. This is unfortunately just a tough, frustrating game. Martian Puck 89 saying salts. I did them already. Thank you, though. I did them. Thanks for liking. Make sure to subscribe here to the channel. Leafs Morning Take back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time in the usual slot to close out this week. We'll see. I mean, I think Nick's going to have a different perspective on this one, and he's not going to be as checked out of it, and he's going to say, let's see what they do in playoffs. My argument, and I tell this to him to his face, so I mean, I saw someone say, I can't believe Zach's shit-talking Nick. I'm not at all. I would say this right to him. Vic's watching the show, so Vic can relay the message. But the thing for me is that, yeah, let's see what they do in playoffs. This is an indication of what you're going to see in the playoffs. So I disagree with Nick on that. I mean, I saw him tweeting it. I know what he's going to say. It's just, this to me is like, what is the word? If foreshadowing, is that the right word? Like where you like open a book and you foreshadow some shit that's going to happen later. Like, yeah, that's what it was. That game was a playoff game. That's who you are. Can't compete. All right, fine. Producer Vic asked me to do it. Salts. I'll do it finally as I close out. Donnie does dishes. Are Nick and Vic roommates? No, they are not. Final thing here, and we'll wrap this up. Thanks for liking. Keep hitting that like button on the way out. Here's the smelling salts one more time. There you go. All right. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for subscribing. That'll wrap up today's show. This has been game number 65 of the Toronto Maple Leafs regular season, losing this one 3-2 to the Florida Panthers here tonight in what was a pretty devastating loss, to be honest, given the importance of this one in the standings. But regardless, catch the boys tomorrow on Leafs Morning Take, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Catch me on Saturday for a pregame show and a postgame show reacting to everything that happens there. Thank you guys very much for the support. That's all for me here tonight. See you on Saturday. Until then, keep believing. For more content just like this, including game previews, post-game live shows, Leafs Morning Take Monday through Friday with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill with special guests, as well as instant reaction videos, make sure to be subscribed here to the Leafs Nation YouTube channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss anything, and drop a like.